Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Great Malabite.
Good morning, Ruben.
Great Malabite.
Good morning, Rufai, without L. Yes, for Governor Yaya Bello to take notes. There's no L in your Rufai. Now, let's start the review. Yeah, by the way, that was an engaging conversation with Chief Dele Momodu, presidential aspirant on the platform of the PDP, and of course, the one we call Bob G. Senior journalist.
He's no longer an aspirant. He's now a member of the Atiku Okowa campaign council for the presidency.
But he did a good job. They're trying to be the peacemaker. And I'm sure all parties will say, well, can we consider what Bob D is saying, Chief Dele Momodu? Now, let's look at start the review with these day newspapers, Nigeria newspaper of record. Now, I will start from the window story above the masthead. Senate, PIA won't solve oil industry challenges without addressing crude theft. Military, security personnel involved in the economic sabotage. Pengassin, Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission allege. Now, of course, the Senate Committee on Petroleum, is looking into this matter of oil theft. And yesterday there was a one-day investigative hearing. And Senator Akpan Bassi, who is the chairman of the Senate Ad Hoc Committee to investigate oil lifting and theft, and he's saying that Nigeria cannot meet its OPEC quota of 1.8 million, producing just 1.2. That in itself is very damning because other countries are clamoring for more production quota. Here we are, we have 1.8, we cannot meet and our quota. But that seems to be the least of the problem these days with the level of oil theft that has been reported in the industry. And Senator Akpan is saying it is clear that the PIA host community law we put in place is not the solution. If stealing of crude has taken this worrisome dimension, what can the host communities do? Which brings us to, and he asks further, we didn't see any pipeline physically, and nobody could ascertain the right of way. Now, if what he is saying is essence, if this kind of, the scale of oil theft that is going on, will these contracts given to Tompolo and some other persons to secure the pipeline, will that be the solution really? Because what we are talking about is connivance, collusion at a very high level. So still a lot to chew on this issue of oil theft, but we seem to be still scratching the surface, and until we get to the root of the matter, because Pengassin and the regulatory authority saying military personnel, security personnel are very much involved in this racket, which has been bleeding the country, robbing us of hard-earned money that we should be getting from our crude. Now, the lead story in the last address to UNGA, Buhari recommends recommits to credible 2023 poll. Says Nigeria championing democracy, rule of law in West Africa, reiterates adherence to constitutional term limits, canvasses debt cancellation for developing nations, call for structural change in the United Nations. Now, the president, of course, yesterday, his speech struck all the right note. I know, Ruben, you're an expert in analyzing whether his speech was well written for the president. I'm sure you'll give this speech thumbs up. I don't expect anything less, because we all listened to the president yesterday. I'm not compelling you to give him pass mark, but I think this was, we can say this is marked improvement to some of the public outings of the president. He touched all the subjects, including the environment, and struck all the right notes, of course, committing to credible election in 2023. If there is one thing the president must do right before he leaves office, of course, he has to preside over a country where free, fair, credible election is conducted come 2023. I'm sure all hands will be on deck. Yes, Dele Momodu alluded to the fact that the electoral umpire usually look at the body language of the leader in power, where if that were to take in as the case, in all cases, then we'll say there's no body language because the president is not contesting and he should not have a preference. Yes, he belongs to a party, he wants his party to win, but it's the will of the people that will prevail at the end of the day. And he has a duty to ensure that INEC present a level playing field, a process that is credible and seen to be so. And of course, President Buhari started by signing that electoral law, 2022, the Electoral Act 2022, which has given INEC the fillip to deploy technology to ensure that we have a credible election. But of course, the issue of the voter register, which INEC said is still cleaning. And we hope the cleaning will get to all nook and crannies, whether in Imo State or elsewhere, where allegations of fake names, fake persons already finding their way into the register. So INEC will await the result of this your cleaning exercise and how far it will go. Now we look at the Guardian newspaper, 2023. Wike's camp reopens PDP wounds. Snubs Atiku campaign. Atiku, I can't force Ayu to resign. Body judge reiterates position on Southern chairmanship. Crisis will soon be over. BOT chair assures. Oyo PDP, Southwest Forum, back Wike, Makinde. Wike's demand. Noble says APC chieftain. Yes, that news yesterday of this, the Wike group. They are not in faction yet because they are still very much within the PDP, and they have said they will stay and support or do damage within PDP. And yesterday, they are pulling out from the Atiku campaign must be a setback to the presidential candidate of the PDP, because with that, with the release of the names for the campaign council, one thought that perhaps they were making progress in the disagreement between both camps, but alas, those men, these are bigwigs. Even if you want to question the electoral value of some of them, but they remain bigwigs within the PDP and in the usual big man politics that we play. You want to assume that some of these will still play a big role in their communities. But can Atiku force Ayu to resign? Of course, he said, no, I cannot force Ayu to resign. And the body that can force Wike to resign, the NEC, the National Executive Council of the PDP, met. And that body, which included many of these members in this group, passed vote of confidence overwhelmingly on Ayu. So if you were Ayu, you were thinking of resigning for the good of the party, for the party to move forward, and the NEC gives you, endorse you and say, look, you have our backing to continue as chairman. Well, of course, you will want to continue. But what is at hand for the PDP is bigger than both Ayu and, of course, the Wike group. Is there any way they can come to a consensus? Dele Momodu said it is possible, and he has been appealing. But, Ruben, there is a threshold on Friday. by Friday, all states, I think talking about the PDP now, will have to submit the names of their own campaign committee or council at the state level to the presidential candidate and the party. And this assignment has been given to most of this UNGA group in their various states. If they don't submit names, what will happen? Will Atiku reach out to political leaders, other political leaders in those states to submit names? And if that were to happen, what will be the consequence going forward? Will that mean calling the bluff of these men? Or, of course, some are still saying Atiku should reach out to UNGA. I like that suggestion by Dele Momodu that get Atiku and UNGA into one room, lock them, tell them to come up with a solution. And when they come out, you see them smiling, shaking hands, you know they have solved the problem. So that some people who speak on behalf of UNGA and others who speak on behalf of Atiku, what they cannot say, they say one thing here, stoking the flames, perhaps that will. But PDP has a problem in its hands. Until they're able to resolve the issue of this group, the UNGA group, something will still be amiss within the party. But one question we must ask, can Atiku win without this group? Is the presence of this group within the Atiku campaign a guarantee that Atiku will win? Questions, and I'm sure we'll answer. But there was this issue you raised, Rufai, earlier about people having to work for another presidential candidate and come back to work for their party. Yes. That it is possible. Yes. The example you gave is not the right example. When you talk about AG, where Tinubu, yes, worked for Jonathan, and of course, but they were almost not having a presidential candidate in that election, to be fair. But the real example I will give to you is in 2003, when the AD governors went and pledged, this is my own words now, loyalty to Obasanjo, that look, this time around, we don't want to disgrace you as a Yoruba man. We ensure that our people vote for you. We know how we usually do it. For the presidential, then we'll come back. What happened to all those governors? By the time they showed Obasanjo some of their tricks, Obasanjo literally chased all of them out of power. Yeah, and he did. It was only Tinubu that survived that hurricane. You remember? So it's dangerous for... So it's dangerous for people to say, oh, we'll leave, we'll go and work for another presidential candidate and come back and work for PDP for the state election, governorship and all that. By the time, you know what we call bandwagon effect.
So does that say something about Tinubu being a strategist? Because he did it and he got it right.
No, okay.
That was how he became the last man standing.
The last man standing. So give the man the credit.
More influence. Yes, to be able to provide.
No, but I will tell you, maybe we'll leave that story for
So can we give it to Tinubu? No, hold on now.
I'm moving on. I said we'll leave that story for another day.
Okay.
How Tinubu stopped the Obasanjo campaign. Last day campaign that went through all the southwest states. But when they got to Lagos, they did not hold that campaigns for security reasons. I'll give you the details at another day. But let's move on. Ruben knows what I'm talking about. Now, the Punch newspaper, of course, How You Must Go, is still the same story in the front page of most of the papers. Daily Trust, Atiku to UNGA camp, retrace your steps. Now, the Daily Independent, ASU moves to appeal order on returning to classes. Rival union, Conwa, urges vice chancellors to reopen universities. Parents, students beg ASU to obey court ruling. Will order VCs to reopen campuses if ASU reneges. Federal government. Now, clearly, the ruling of the industrial courts does not stop negotiation. And ASU should understand that. But they're saying they want to appeal, and Femi Falana has mentioned that, well, it's within their rights to do so. But if the outcome remains the same, I think the university lecturers should just go back to the class and teach. while this negotiation continues. And the court stated that clearly. It does not stop, and the federal government has reaffirmed it. The ruling of the court has nothing to do with stopping the negotiation. We go on with the negotiation and continue to see how we can meet ASU's demand. So it's one way to save face, but if ASU wants to continue by going to the appeal court, well, we'll see how it pans out. Now, the foreign newspapers quickly, of course, the Financial Times. Putin makes nuclear threat as he mobilizes army reserves for war. Russia seeks 300,000 more troops. Biden blasts outrageous act. Call up a sign of weakness. That's what they're saying in the West. Now, the Wall Street Journal, Fed's lift rate signals more denting stocks. After the latest 0.75 point increase, officials see further moves even at the risk of recession. Yes, the Federal Reserve yesterday approved the third consecutive interest rate of 0.75 percentage points and signaled additional large increases were likely, even though they are raising the risk of recession. And they're saying between now and the end of the year, there will be further raise in the rates.
Yeah, and it's going to fall back on us in this country.
Ruben and Rufai, you've been talking a lot this morning, so over to you now.
No, but it's going to fall back on us, and it's a good thing you talked about Fed raise, because the Fed will still always increase its interest rate because it's fighting inflation in its own country.
Until they are able to bring inflation to about 2%, they will continue to raise the rate.
And Biden, we all know midterm is just around the corner. He wants to start a strong point, and he also wants to bolster his base leading up to the next election. He wants economic prosperity. We all know what nations of the world went through after COVID. So he will do everything possible, and that's why I keep saying the weak must suffer was the most, because it is us here that we don't have things to bolster our own currency. We're not collecting enough dollars, to bolster our own currency. Our currency is going up and down like a yo-yo. Dr. Bato was talking about our currency rated 12th.
11th weakest currency.
Weakest currency in the world
against the dollar.
Against the dollar in the world today. And that's at an all-time low for us. So we're seeing the after effects. And that's why we should go in there and think of what to do for our country. Raise revenue, increase government revenue, increase how to collect this revenue, cut corruption, put up good regulatory frameworks so that investors will come into our crude oil and energy sector, because that's a lot of prospect for us. Ensure we do everything possible to remove this subsidy so that we start to reinvest the money in other areas. And just be accountable to the Nigerian people. It's not too much to ask for the next leader to do. And when you do it, you see that this country will start to grow, it starts to succeed, because this country is blessed. 200 million people with a very young population. Mr. Fini, 6 in every 10 people you will meet before the end of today were born around the year 2000. The median age in Nigeria is 18. It's a very young population. Close to 42% of Nigerians were not born in 2005. Most of them are age 15. It's a very young population willing to work. And that's why we keep telling all these leaders.
Ruben, we say we've been very busy in the other room.
Oh, honestly, it's a very
you are one of the great ones producing that young population.
No, it's a very young population. See, 42% of the population now were not born in 2005. are not up to the age of 15 in this country. Then less than 30, 70%, high numbers.
I think that's why we must hear from all the presidential candidates.
Yes.
How they want to turn this economy
around and provide job for the young people. It's a very young country.
Okay, Feni, you mentioned the president's speech at the United Nations General Assembly. It's been a long time I criticize any speech from the villa in terms of the composition. So they got the acts right on that, and they've been writing good speeches. But I think what is more important is not the style. What is more important is the substance of the presentation by the President of Nigeria and the issues that he addressed. Now, it was farewell speech, so he said next year there will be another face representing Nigeria. But he talked about his commitment to the legacy of transparent and credible elections, and also to constitutional two-term limits. For those persons who have been speculating that maybe the president is not serious about the 2023 general elections, he has told the entire world that there will be a transition to which is committed. Well, you know what happens across Africa. And then he backed that up with Nigeria's support for the rule of law in the Gambia, in Guinea-Bissau, in Chad. Good points. Then, of course, he spoke about technology. I didn't have time to refer to that. And with regard to technology, he talks about the threat of the social media, what he calls a digital mob, a corrosive digital mob. I thought that was what I heard. You know, spreading misinformation, disinformation, blackmailing people, behaving like thugs on social media. This is something that, you know, the Nigerian government has always talked about. But the question is, how do you strike the balance between freedom of speech?
Is that not undue demonization of the social media?
No. Well, he's not the only one that holds that view. And then, of course, all the things he also said about values. That speech ended on a note of values, which I think is important, about commitment, about solidarity, about a world that is built on the foundations of peace. He talked about Ukraine and condemned the war and the threat that nuclear proliferation poses to the world. And then, of course, he talked about the reform of the UN. I hope someday that UN will be reformed. And the line I like is that, look, this UN was created in 1945. It's a different world. The demands are different. Can we do something about it? Change is important. Good line. Okay? And then, of course, he talked about debt cancellation. I commented on that earlier on the program, whether it's debt relief that we should be talking about or debt cancellation and the responsibilities of the leaders of the developing countries. Thank you very much, Emmanuel Fene.